Hello, I'm Elser Evangelista, and welcome to the first session of our discussion. So, basically, I would like to introduce myself first. So, I'm your lecturer. Well, please just address me as Sir Ellie or something like Ellie. Yeah. Okay. So, probably you have an idea about our topic or about our subject. So, I hope that you have had conducted yourself with the previous reading or you have got yourself acquainted with the topics that we have to discuss. I want you to prioritize on the course description of this course, and that's actually theories of language learning and acquisition. These are very essential factors that we have to discuss. Theories of language learning and acquisition. All of these terminologies will be explained further. Okay, so I will be sharing with you this slide later. I'll be giving you a link to have an access of this, or primarily, you can request your classmates to have a screenshot of this if you just can't, watch or download it. Okay, so let me just show you my screen. Here we go. There you go. Okay, you might be wondering why is it in Spanish? Well, because I'm an advocate of Spanish language relearning in the Philippines. And this doesn't really coincide with the idea of, you have to maintain this certain level of proficiency in English, but we have to, in a way, have to live with our multilingual landscape or multilingual orientation. So aside of learning English, I'd also like to propagate the idea of, we can relearn our consciousness through learning or relearning Spanish. ¿Hablas inglés? Sí. Okay, so in this topic, we will have to define language, its importance, and functions. Alright, so let's get to know each other through a small activity. So, since this is a recorded lecture, we can't do this one, but definitely I might give you a task on how to do this. Okay, so I'm Elisa Evangelista. I'm a multilingual. I don't really, call myself a polyglot. But growing up, my mom really imposed a rule in the family when I was like growing up, about 3 or 4 years old. I need to talk or speak in Ilocano whenever I talk to her, and I need to speak in Pangasinan whenever I talk to my father. So that's my orientation. My mom taught me English first, and I learned English first. Next is Tagalog or Filipino. So I was like speaking Pangasinan and Ilocano at home and then relearning English as my foreign language. And when I was like 7 or 8, then I got to learn what Tagalog is. Yeah, when I was like growing. That was when I was 8 or yeah, 7, I guess. Okay, so that's actually the landscape or language, my language profile. So when we try to detect the language profile of a kid, we have to talk to them. Yeah, we have to listen about their idiolect. Idiolect is spelled as Ideolect, idiolect, or manner of style or speaking style. So each of us has an idiolect. The idiolect, I guess, is actually unique to a person. So, if for example, in the classroom there are 30 persons inside the classroom, then therefore there are 30 idiolects in the classroom because that is what we call a unique speaking pattern of an individual. Okay, so now you have an idea what an idiolect is. Please use the terminology in your daily conversations, just in case. Alright, so next, I want you to have fun in this activity or in this class. So, with regards to the task or introducing yourself to me, your linguistic landscape or orientation at home, probably you can do a recorded video, but I'll give you a guidelines on that. Okay, so I'm now presenting to you a problem or probably a landscape or a locale. I'm giving you the idea of multilingualism. And what's multilingualism? Multilingualism is the ability of a person to speak one or more languages. That could also be bilingualism, two language, but multilingualism is ability to speak more than two languages. And that's in a way related to being a polyglot. Poly means many, so glot means tongue or language. So somebody who can speak a lot of language. That's what it means by polyglot. So who's a multilingual? That's like what I said. We Filipinos are multilinguals. The Philippines has more than 120 languages all over, spread across the archipelago. But if we look into the language profile of every person, not probably not any single city in the Philippines is monolingual. So basically, we speak Tagalog for our daily conversations, just in case we were raised as, Tagalog speakers at home. But in our regional lingua franca, that's Ilocano or Pangasinan, we also spoke them when we are inside these particular space or sphere. That's actually when you are living within Pangasinan, and the other person could actually speak Pangasinan, then you speak in Pangasinan. But when you go outside Pangasinan and you go to Manila and transact or talk with the people in Manila, so you are compelled to speak in Tagalog or in English. That's how we shift from one language to another, and that's how multilingualism works. Another thing is that in the education system, we learn a lot of languages in the education system. We have Filipino, we have English, and we have all the other languages in the Philippines. Like previously, when mother tongue was not yet abolished as a core subject, we also have mother tongue, and that differs or that depends on your locality. Another thing is when you go into high school or junior high school, there are lots of foreign languages are being offered in the high school, like Korean, Chinese, Japanese. Actually, there are universities or schools, middle schools in the Philippines that offer Japanese as a foreign language. So this is just to say that the Philippine archipelago, has a wide or rich linguistic diversity. Again, I'll repeat, polyglot, this one is a person who can speak many languages. It is somehow related to a person who is multilingual, as a person who can speak three or more languages. Bilingual is a person who can speak two languages. Bi means two. Okay. Number two, mono means one, a person who can only speak one language. Okay. So in our idea of, our goal is to teach English from L1 and L2. L1 means first language. I repeat, L1 means first language, and L2 means second language, or L2. Okay, L1 is first language, the first language that you learn at home, that could be your mother tongue. L2 is the language that you acquire, that you are actually learning. Okay, I repeat, sorry, L1 is the language you acquired at home, acquired. L2 is the language that you learned or are learning after you have acquired first language. Okay, the term acquisition or acquired only refers to first language. I repeat, acquisition or L1 only refers to the first language. So after learning the first language, any other process which involve learning additional second or third languages, the term that applies there is learning. We don't acquire a second language, but instead we learn a second or third language. So that is the clear distinctions of these two pedagogical process in learning and acquiring a particular language. So the end point in mind is that you, as a student, as of now, should have acquire or should acquire more language so that you would be able to be prepared. You would be prepared to teach English when you finish grad school, the school, right? Or your university years. So, in this course, I also want you to become more adept or familiar with pedagogies and strategies in teaching language. And this is not only limited to teaching English, but, you know, teaching language as a whole or as a strategy. So, first and foremost, look at this particular slide. We are trying to define what language is. Language is a system of conventional, spoken, manual, sign, or written symbols by means of which human beings, as members of a social group and participants in its culture, express themselves. In short, language is our medium of communication. We cannot communicate, or our communication is limited if we don't have a system of language. Okay, we can actually communicate through body odor. We can actually communicate through non-verbal cues. And animals could also communicate, and that's what we call animal communication. But then, therefore, our systemic meaningful sounds or utterances, these letters, A for apple, something like that, B, B, these are all significant sounds that, when put together, they create meaningful utterances, words with meanings. Okay? So, letter A itself is actually a symbol, okay? Letter A, if you write letter A, okay. For example, WHAT. When we read that, that means what. But if you actually separate W from HANT, and then that means nothing. That is just a letter. But when they are grouped together, this becomes a sound. And when we put a meaning to that sound, then that refers something else. Okay, that's how language becomes more systematic and also complicated. The letters would mean nothing if we don't put meaning to them and if we don't group them together to create meaningful sounds. That's how language works. Okay, and it's used by people. So now, how did we have a language? Was it invented or was it natural? Actually, there are various theories how language occur. If you look into social evolution, it is actually like development from the primates. And when the primates were able to, make meaningful utterances, then therefore society had developed and become more civilized. But if you would also look into the biblical narratives, it says that we're created, and when the Tower of Babel was destroyed by God, and so he destroyed it by putting in a particular language to every person so that they would not understand each other, and as a result they were dispersed throughout the earth. And that's a biblical explanation about language diversity. But if you look into other meanings or explanations of language diversity, it will come up, or we start with the primates who were able to think or use their mind or knowledge to be able to make meaningful utterances. Okay, so in short, a structured system of signs and symbols for communication. So, an illustration of this is this one. This is actually a sign. Green means go, orange means wait, red means stop. And these are all signs and letters and signs. Like I had explained to you, language is complex and language is a branch of knowledge. For example, in abstraction, this word patience, PATIENCE, it's actually just meaning. It's actually just a word means patience, patience, patience. But can you eat patience? Of course not. It's an abstract or concept word. Father, what is it? It's a concrete concept word. You could actually look, touch, or hug your father. So that's actually a concept word. And we also have concrete words. This precedes our reality. We can see it, we can touch it with our senses. And we also have systems of writing, and we also have sounds, and we also have sign communication. And other meaningful symbols that refer something else. For example, the peace sign, whenever we could actually see a person using peace sign, then that means that, they want peace or being friendly, or it is just actually a style when taking a selfie. Okay, so for this class discussion, I also want you to think about how do humans communicate? What do we use to communicate? Definitely we use language to communicate. Do animals have communication? Do humans automatically learn language? Describe the world without language. What does it look like? Okay, so I want you to answer these questions. So I'll give you a guidance on how to answer these questions in our class discussion. So, next slide is that we have characteristics of language, things to ponder about language. What are these? Number one, every physiologically and mentally typical person acquires in childhood the ability to make use and, use language. Okay. I told you a while back, when you are trying to acquire L1 or first language, the word is acquires. Okay, so how do they acquire? They acquire it through imitation. When their parents would say mama, papa, baba, um food, milk, those are actually the words that they often hear, then most likely they will be repeating those words. Okay, so it's really possible that even if you are a Filipino, if your mom talks to you in English, then your first language would be English, even if you're living in the Philippines. So that's one thing. Okay, next. Number two. Different systems of communication constitute different languages. The degree of difference needed to establish a different language cannot be stated exactly. What does this mean? Okay, like I told you a while back, we have 31 idiolects, for example. If there are 31 persons in the classroom, then therefore we have 31 idiolects. Idiolects is the habits of expression of a single person or has been coined as that one. Okay, what is this? We use language to communicate. And sometimes when we communicate, we have various styles on how to do that. Sometimes we even couple our communication with nonverbal cues. That's also one thing. Number three, typically, people acquire a single language initially, their first language or native tongue, or what we call mother tongue, the language used by those whom or by whom they are brought upon from infancy, and that's your mom. Okay, so thanks to your mom, if she spoke to you in Ilocano or she spoke to you in Bisaya or Cebuano, then me just thankful to it. But if your mom talked to you in English first, and then that's also nice, whatever language that is. Okay, so this ladder shows language proficiency level. So in English, what's your level of language proficiency? If you seldom speak in English or you seldom produce or make, an article or use your language skill, so it might not develop or it might not as reach a certain high level of mastery or proficiency. So I encourage you guys to, just speak whenever you make mistakes, just fine, okay? You don't have to worry about those. Just go on and learn by yourself. Language acquisition and learning L1 and L2. I repeat, if you are trying to deal with L2 or second language, the word is learning. Learning L2. And in the classroom, sometimes we have multilingual landscape. That's actually typical in the Philippines. Multilingualism and language diversity. And these are actually types of ways on how to teach English in the classroom. TEFL means teaching English as foreign language. TEFL means teaching English as foreign language. TESL means teaching English as second language. TESL is actually the framework that we use in the Philippines because it's our second language. Teaching English in elementary and teaching English for specific purposes. These are various ways on how we use or teach English across multiple disciplines and contexts. Okay, another thing. Number four, characteristics of language. Language is a species, is specific to human beings. When a person doesn't talk or doesn't even reach out, doesn't make friends, is he using language enough? The answer is no. Okay, so we have the ability to connect, make meaningful connections with people, use that power to be able to establish meaningful relationship with others. No man is an island. That's actually a fact. So try to mingle with people, use communication to make it more diverse and to enrich your lives. Okay, number five, here we go. The primary purpose of language is to facilitate communication in the sense of transmission of information from one person to another. And right now, what I'm doing is these number five characteristics of language: knowledge transfer or instruction. So, without this, of course, we were not able to relate to you what we know. If the authors would not write books, then therefore, you would not be able to learn about these intimate experiences that the person or the author have experienced or have written. So all of these, either in written form or spoken form, we use language to create meaningful activities such as knowledge sharing or leisure enjoyment or information sharing. Okay, so let's think about this again. Okay, probably just really think about it, ponder to it. I don't really need you to answer it, but of course, you can actually do your research to answer these questions. Number one, what are the roles of language in shaping our future? What are the roles of language in shaping our future? How do we progress without language? Could we progress without language? That's actually a very important question to ponder about. How does artificial intelligence helps to eliminate language barriers? So I know that you're familiar with some language apps that when you just have to dictate what the AI will do, then Viola, you have what it has, what you want to have. So that's how it goes. But can robots speak? That's another thing. Okay, but of course they can. Like Siri, yeah, right. I'm using Siri, so robots can well, can communicate. Why is there a need to learn a second language or more languages? Is having L1 not enough to learn or build knowledge and acquire basic skills like, teaching, learning, whatever? Well, the answer here is that since the Philippines is a multilingual landscape, so therefore it is inevitable that we could only speak one language. So there is a high need for us to learn English because of financial opportunities. And of course, not most of the knowledge that we have are written in English. Even in the university, the textbooks there that we have to use as references in the classroom are all in English. So if we miss to be good at speaking English, we are missing in life. That's also true. Okay, so that's it. We have the references here. So watch out for the guidelines for you to answer the following questions that I posted here. So I hope you have to enjoy it and have fun. Bye, everybody.